I love sharing my joy for Pokemon with my friends. I love telling them about competitive Pokemon and all the fun I have with it. And the grief, I guess. But they will inevitably tell me they haven't played a Pokemon game in 10 or 20 years, and so I end up talking with them about Pokemon they're familiar with. What if newer Pokemon were added to RBY? What if they had to compete with speed deciding crits and one special stat and god awful move diversity? Wouldn't that be funny? Wouldn't that be hilarious? So for this deluded little thought experiment, I will be looking at various Pokemon that I think are interesting or funny. But because there's so much different Pokemon between 1996 and now, I feel there's a couple tidbits to clarify. There's no abilities, so you don't have to worry about Intimidate Lando showing up and ruining your setup 5 times a game. Steel, Fairy and Dark types don't exist either, so I will be removing or changing these purely based on vibes or not. I'll also be combining the special attack and defense stats just based on vibes too, I guess. Some Pokemon deserve a higher special stat to help them carve out their own little spot in the meta, and other Pokemon are called Bruxish and deserve nothing.
I don't care about it! It's nothing to me!
Furthermore, in the interest of trying to fully replicate how they'd feel on the actual cartridge, I don't want to include newer moves. We can examine them on their own, but I don't want to examine a Pokemon through the ridiculous moves they have today. And given that there are like an additional 900 Pokemon from 1996 till now, I won't be reviewing the potential of every single one, you know? Do people really care about how good Maractus is in Gen 1? Are people skating their jorts to hear about how amazing Simipour is? So without further ado, let's look into the abyss of Pokemon that could be good or bad in RBY, but aren't either. Because they're not in it. I have an innate fear of Shuckle. We all know the hoops you can make it jump through to deal 4 billion damage or whatever, but how does it fare in RBY? As we all know, the special attack and defense stats were the same thing in the first games, so what do you do to Shuckle? Personally, I think keeping its special stat wouldn't even be a terrible idea. It learns 0 special attacking moves, so you aren't really unbalancing Shuckle in any fundamental way. I think it would sit right alongside Chansey as the closest thing to a Stallmon. You have much less move diversity when all you can do is spread status through Toxic or playing the Body Slam Paralysis roulette. It would definitely force switches because normal stab attacks are about a 7-hit KO against you. Your best checks, however, are probably Rhydon, who has rock moves and runs Substitute to block status, and Starmie, who really doesn't give a shit about getting Toxicked and then has a 97% chance to 2-shot you with Surf. I wrote an earlier version of this script talking about how Pyukumuku would be the most incongruous pick in Gen 1 because it learns 7 fucking moves and none of them deal direct damage. All you have is Toxic, Counter and Bide. However, I considered that Gen 1 just has a lot of weird crap that you don't see in any other gen, so I would like to change my answer. Pyukumuku is the most Gen 1 Pokemon, maybe even more than actual Gen 1 Pokemon. I would use this in a game of RBY. I wouldn't win, but I would use him. I would be happy. I would also let him keep his higher special defense because he deserves it. What a sweetheart. I spoke negatively about Ledian in my last video, and I feel like I'm going to do it again. However, I will show an uncharacteristic act of kindness in that I think she can have her more impressive 110 special defense as her special stat. Now you might think her move pool would be emptier than the space between my ears, but Ledian has access to Swords Dance, meaning you can hypothetically grab a boost and maybe kill something if your opponent was dropped as a child. You even have Screech if you want to set up a kill for a harder hitter too. It wouldn't be finding success in OU, but maybe it could carve out a spot for itself in the lower tiers as a Pokemon that has moves and stats. Ledian truly is a 5-star Pokemon. Carbink has a similar issue to Shuckle in that the special stat uniquely messes it up. And unlike Shuckle, it can actually use its special stat, so this would be what many scholars are calling a fucking problem. Maybe it could be averaged out to 100 in total in a compromise that makes nobody happy. If that's not enough of a headache, it's also got a forbidden type that won't exist for like another 20 years or so. I think you could make Carbink rock normal though. 4 of the 5 fairy types in Gen 1 start as a normal type, so it doesn't feel completely out of place. And rock normal with these stats and these moves? This is good, I want to say. Oh, but Madchamp's mission is a one-hit KO though, so maybe this Pokemon is about as much use as a spare deck. To round off this list of tormented souls, we have Wobbuffet. Wobbuffet might be the most damned Pokemon to be dropped into RBY. While something like Magikarp has a limited move pool because it's part of its identity, and you eventually get the coolest fucking thing ever, Wobbuffet has exactly 3 moves. You can boost your special with Amnesia, you can use counter to catch normal type attacks, and your third move is Splash, which, as we all know, is scientifically proven to be not very good. If counter worked the way it did in future gens and countered all physical moves instead of just fighting and normal, I could see some weird crap to have fun with here. Because you could resist special moves through your insane stats and access to Amnesia, and then repel the physical attacks with counter. But as it is, I cannot envision any niche it could possibly serve. Next, I want to talk about what I'm going to call really good fuckers, because these fuckers are really good. They have stats and traits that benefit them so damn much in this metagame that they range from OU staples to shit that would outmatch Mewtwo. Slacking is the mystery shopper sent in to stress test how many things a Pokemon can do in Gen 1 before you have to tap out and surrender. Slacking has absolutely phenomenal stats, the single best type in the game, and it learns every single move you could imagine, only missing out on Recover and Swords Dance, but still. I think it would even take a similar role to Snorlax in GSC-OU, who is an auto-include that can run 105,000 different sets. Games would revolve around Slacking just killing things, and the opposing player trying not to die immediately. Regigigas is like Slacking's slightly underperforming brother. It's got pretty much the same stats as Slacking, but you're trading HP for higher defense and special. This is a debatable trade because Slacking is still the better hit taker, and it can also boost its lower special with Amnesia. Even in a tier where its ability doesn't exist, it's outshone by another. This isn't to say Regigigas is bad, however, it's still balls to the wall incredible. It's just simply not the top dog. It's also not got all the key moves Slacking has. It's got the staples of Bolt Beam, Earthquake and normal moves, but you're missing the funny side grades like Counter or Amnesia. You do have Stomp, however, so maybe you could paralyze a Slacking and then just kick it to death. It's impossible to say. Besides the 2 normal titans that are Bored Ape and Reginald Big Ass, the next Pokemon people are probably drifting towards in their head is Regice. And I can see why. Ice is a phenomenal type to have. You aren't nearly as gimped by it as you might be in later games. Fire is super uncommon, and any Pokemon that uses a rock move is probably slower than you and super weak to ice attacks. And then with the special stats being combined, people always give it the 200 special, and I am no different. 200 special takes Regice from being a pretty good ice type that's unfortunately walled by Chansey to the Pokemon equivalent of Land Raider Tarkus. Ice Beam does a quarter to Chansey, and after an Amnesia boost, it's a roll to 2-hit KO. And if you want to guarantee that 2-hit KO, then the +2 Blizzard has you covered. You can't actually boost to +4 with Amnesia, because you'd hit the stat cap of 999. You're not missing out on much though, sitting at 996 special after a single Amnesia. And if that's not juicy enough, Gen 1 freeze mechanics mean you also have a 10% chance to just fucking kill them outright with a permanent freeze, while your ice typing makes you completely immune to it. I feel Regice will probably be the most threatening Pokemon to face at full HP, because its physical defense is decent and its special bulk is only slightly behind Chansey's when Regice has 0 boosts. If you force them out, you can boost up and just murder whatever check they've got. You even get Defense Curl to boost your physical bulk, which is just hilarious. I can understand Regice learning Harden, but it doesn't learn it, it learns Defense Curl. How's it curling? It's a solid piece of ice, please explain this. Regieleki is the most all-gas, no-breaks Pokemon on this list. It's Electrode on ketamine, it's fucking insane. Your move pool is more or less limited to electric moves, Thunder Wave, Screech and Exploding. You also have a staggeringly high crit rate of 39%, which means you can just reliably hit something for double damage and then kill it. Which is even funnier when you realise that your Explosion can crit too, and not even a rock type wants to switch into that. You do have Hyper Beam if you want a normal move that doesn't turn you into giblets, but anyone using a Pokemon like this is using it to go fast, eat ass, and detonate the Fulminated Mercury.
Kill yourself.
I'm not going to talk about the other Reggies because this video's looking long enough and I want to talk about other stuff that isn't Reggies. But Regirock is a Rhydon that trades a bit of attack and HP for better bulk and special. And Reginald Steel would be great if it became a normal type, I'm sure. Hisuian Zoroark might be one of the best Pokemon to lose an ability that isn't total dog shit and still get better, simply by virtue of it probably having the best typing in Gen 1. You have normal stab, no weaknesses, and an immunity to other people's normal attacks. Your move pool is lacking Bolt Beam and Earthquake, but I don't think that honestly matters when anything that can tank a normal attack really doesn't want to eat a Psychic. You're still vulnerable to counter, so you would have to bear this in mind when spamming your Sword Dance boosted body slams. Oh yeah, this guy gets Swords Dance by the way. There's a few Pokemon who are normal type that also have Swords Dance and they'd all be fucking cracked as a result. Especially when the strongest normal type Swords Dancer in Gen 1 is far-fetched. Screamtail is another Pokemon that would have to have its typing surgically altered, but because it's based off of Jigglypuff you can sorta easily fit it into the cubbyhole of a normal type. And then it would keep its Psychic typing, making it another god tier type. While it's not impressive in modern competitive, this thing in Gen 1 would be a beast. It's a Psychic type with access to Amnesia, and it's faster than Tauros. That's a good Pokemon. Ursaluna is the strongest Swords Dance normal type even in Gen 9, so you know it's going to be absolutely cracked. It's got Park Ground typing too, so you can't even try and gimp it with Thunder Wave. After a Swords Dance boost, your Hyper Beam kills literally anything that isn't Rock or Ghost, and even then, your Earthquakes one-shot them instead. It might sound like Reflect Rest Aerodactyl has got its time to shine again, until you just crunch the numbers and realise that it's a 99.5% chance in Ursaluna's favour to just two-shot you through the Reflect anyway. Get fucked. And pretty much every box legend is going to be amazing as well. Whoop-de-doo. Next, I want to talk about the winners. Pokemon that become noticeably better when placed into Pokemon Red, Blue and Yellow for the Game Boy Color. Assuming Bastiodon becomes a mono rock, it loses its 4 times weaknesses, so it becomes a respectable physical wall. I am however going to say it keeps the lore special, and that's okay. Rock types aren't really known for sitting in on special attacks anyway, and this means Bastiodon gets to keep its ice moves, so you can fish for a freeze while you take 15% from a Tauros Earthquake. While you are susceptible to being Thunder Waved and you don't resist ice, it's really looking up for you. You have Reflect to make you even tankier on the physical side too. This guy's going places. It's just the speed he's going there is about as slow as me uploading new videos. RBY is probably one of the best gens to be an ice type, and Avalugg is like the quintessential bulky ice type. It's better than it would be in any other gen because your weaknesses really aren't all that common. Fighting and Rock hit you on your far bulkier physical side, and fire moves barely exist. It does suck though that your Ice Beams and Blizzards are coming off your weedy special stat of 46, but you're immune to being frozen, and it's a stab move, so it's probably still a decent thing to spam against switching Pokemon and your hard counters. You've got so much physical bulk that Rhydon's Rock Slide isn't even a guaranteed 3-hit KO. Granted, it's in your favour to eat 3 of them 2% of the time, but with the frequency of 1 in 256 misses I get, I think I'm owed that. Don't you? You might think that Electros is at a loss without its Deer Levitate, but I have to disagree. It's got similar bulk to Zapdos, which isn't bad, and it's an electric type that actually has fucking coverage moves. You've got Body Slam, which is never terrible, Rock Slide to hit Zapdos, and Flamethrower if you feel like wasting both your and your opponent's time. I think your biggest weakness is your slow and an electric type, which isn't an amazing mix. Rhydon's Earthquake does 94% at most, so you're an electric type that can survive a single Earthquake. Okay, maybe Electros is actually cracked. I've reevaluated it like 4 different times in this script and I keep thinking it's better every time.
Do you like eels?
I like sushi.
Sushi? I'm talking about eels, boy!
Good typing is much more of a premium in Gen 1, I think. There's so few Pokemon that if your type is fine and you have a couple decent moves, you're going to UU at the very least. I think Farigiraffe demonstrates this pretty well.
It's a fucking giraffe!
There's nothing outwardly phenomenal about it, it just has good typing, it's got good stats to use both its stab moves, and then there's plenty of side choices like Earthquake, Thunderwave and Hyper Beam. Farigiraffe is going to do great. It can't be paralysed by Body Slam and it resists Psychic, how are you going to lose? To be fair, pretty much any normal or Psychic type is just going to be better off. Next, I want to talk about the losers. Pokemon that range from consistent amazements to banned threats and even just funny shit that has great niches, dropping all the way down to the bottom of the bucket. Wow, the ground dragon maybe isn't kicking ass when dragon moves don't exist. You can't boost your speed and you're 4 times weak to a type that's so good your opponent is probably going to have 2 or 3 things that carry it. Not to say that Garchomp is completely unviable, it still hits hard and it crits like 20% of the time. You're a fast Pokemon with Swords Dance and enough bulk to take hits or just switch in on electric types. It's just the nature of Gen 1, meaning you're far more likely to just get completely annihilated by a special attacker or ice moves. I'm probably being too cruel to Garchomp here, putting it as the first Pokemon in a list of Pokemon I have labelled losers. If it was mono ground, I have no doubt Garchomp would be a lot better. Shedinja has no ability. Lol. Lamau. I guess you can switch into a mono normal Snorlax, but what the fuck are you doing after that? Using your Swords Dance boosted Leech Life for a potential 9-hit KO? You wish.
Whatever, I came out on top, yeah? Ain't nobody out there who can touch me. I'm Monsoon Moon, I rain down.
I think Firebug might be the worst possible typing to have. You have Amnesia and Fire Blast, so you can definitely hit hard, but like with Chansey and Stormy existing, and the latter also outspeeding you, what the fuck are you even bringing this in on? Burning Rhydon sounds amazing until you realise that even at +4, you're not one-shotting Rhydon. Meanwhile, Rock Slide does a minimum of 240% to you. You do however learn Solar Beam, which if you get the predict right and charge on the turn they switch, you're gonna fucking donk whatever comes in. There's a reason fire types in Gen 1 have nothing going for them. They have about as much presence in OU as the guy at a party who wishes they were at home doing dungeoneering. Maybe that analogy is too personal. Dracovish has no Fishious Rend, and even if there was, there's no Tough Jaws and no speed boosting. All you have is some pretty standard coverage of your water, normal and ground, and that's about it. Your physical attacks aren't stat boosted, and your special attacks are walled by pretty much every good special attacker in the game and Chansey. What in Christ are you going to do? Wowee, another Pokemon that's 4 times weak to ice, I wonder if it's going to be good. It might be a bit better than Garchomp, due to being a flying type immune to electric moves, but you're still fucking wrecked by ice attacks, and you have way less move pool variety to play with. I can't imagine which of these two is truly better. It's like picking which kneecap I want to get blown off. You do have base 145 attack and a stab earthquake however. And if that's not enough, you also get access to Explosion, so you can one-shot Chansey by just ending it all immediately in front of her. Which I understand. I want to end it all when I see Chansey too. And any Pokemon that relies on its ability, is a fire type, or both, is gonna fucking suck, let's be honest here. So to wrap things up, because this video is starting to look like hell for someone who makes like 1 video a year, I wanted to pay respects to the Pokemon that were either too unremarkable or just didn't make the cut. And to conclude, if these were added, how would it affect the meta? Not to clickbait you, but by Christ this is so monumental I cannot begin to comprehend. Maybe if a couple were added you could make a more succinct analysis, but by adding all these detestable creatures, you'd impact the meta so significantly that someone like myself who only has like 1250 elo on the ladder, I would be damned to give you anything looking like an accurate summary. I would use Shiftry though. I love Shiftry, it blows up and doesn't afraid of anything.